this morning we are going to talk about Buddhist financial management and happiness. So I will begin by first talking about happiness. When we talk about happiness in Buddhism, we always talk about the highest happiness, which is Nibbana, Nibbana Paramang Sukham. This has often been stressed that we, as Buddhists, we should aim for the highest happiness, and that highest happiness is Nibbana. And how do we do it? We have to go through a meditation process, a meditative concentration process, whereby we begin with the initial application or vitakka, and then the sustained application vichara, and then we will arrive at joy or piti, and then from joy and piti we move on to a little bit higher level, and that is sukha or happiness, and then we move further up to one-pointedness of the mind or samadhi. Now this is all about meditative happiness. You will notice that at first we have to make an effort to apply our mind, then have to sustain that application. Then we arrive at the third stage, the joy or the piti. This is like if you are in a desert and you have the knowledge that there is an oasis somewhere nearby, then that kind of feeling, that kind of it's not feeling, that kind of knowledge gives you that piti, the joy. And when you arrive at the oasis, where you really drink the water, then the feeling of happiness, of sukha will appear. So you notice that in meditative processes, that even the level of happiness is defined into great details, and then from the sukha or happiness we would arrive at a higher level, and that is the one-pointedness samadhi. And when you arrive at the one-pointedness samadhi, actually there is no more the kind of feeling of happiness. It's a kind of peace. That's why I remember long ago, our late Chief Reverend did mention that when you have peace, there's no happiness, because the normal happiness that we talk about is not the type of peace that is emphasized in samadhi. So anyway, this is talking about a level of happiness which is very much higher. But now we would like to go back to lay people like us. You know, we want to go back to lay people like us. Are you with me? I'm not so sure because I can't see anything here now.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then we want to talk about the happiness of lay people. You know, when we talk about lay people actually, I'm just wondering how many of you here are interested in the demonic bliss. I think maybe hardly anyone. For lay people like us, we are more interested in the kind of happiness associated with lay people. Ayu Varna Sukhang Balang. And this is what we often wish for. Ayu means long life. We want to have long life. Varna means in Bahasa Malaysia is Warna. Warna means color. But color actually refers to the color of the skin. Varna here means refer to beauty, refer to health. So these are the things that we wished for. Then the next level is Sukha. Here you talk about happiness, the kind of worldly happiness that we want to have. Then the next level is Palang. Palang in English is often translated as a power, or in the Chinese is transferred as Gui. Means you have a lot of followers, you have a lot of admirers, a lot of people would like to be associated with you. And things that you do is often successful. That's called Balang. So you would like to have Balang. So the Chinese word is Gui, or the English word power actually cannot describe this word Balang properly. But if you are Hokkien, then you can use the word Ong. It means Ong. When you are Ong, you have a lot of people who like to follow you. You get things done easily. So these are the four main things that we lay people look at, right or not? So when we talk about happiness, we have to distinguish that there is actually a difference between the ultimate and the non-ultimate happiness. The Nibbanic happiness is a kind of ultimate happiness, which you would like to attain eventually. But meanwhile, most of us would like to have the non-ultimate happiness, the Ayu Varna Sukhang Palang, which we are told these things are also anicca. It won't be forever with us. Sometimes it is with us for a short while. Eventually, it would disappear. But anyway, we still like it. You just imagine if you don't have this so-called non-ultimate happiness in our present life now, then this is not a human life. This is a life of hell. Okay? And it will be an unbearable way of life. So fortunately, we have this kind of non-ultimate happiness with us. So for lay people, we would like to know more what kind of lay happiness that we can have. Unfortunately, most of the time when we talk about happiness in Buddhism, people often start with Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first sutta that was preached by the Buddha. Now in this sutta, we talk about dukkha, samudaya, nirodha, magga. We talk about suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So the common denominator here is suffering. So when you talk about Dhamma, when you talk about happiness, unfortunately most Buddhist preachers talk about suffering. So it's exactly the opposite. So that is why we frighten frighten away a lot of people. A lot of people come to the temple and inquire about what does Buddhism teach. We always often started off with saying the Buddha teaches us about suffering. But actually, if you scrutinize properly, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta is not about suffering. It's about happiness. It's just like, well, it first its common denominator is common denominator is suffering or dukkha, but its emphasis is on the ending of sukha. Ending of sukha, cessation of sukha, nirodha, is nibbana, and nibbana paramang sukham. So the aim is happiness. Okay? It's just like we often associate doctors with sicknesses. The aim of doctor is not to associate with sicknesses. The aim of being a doctor is to treat the sicknesses and to cure your sicknesses. The common denominator is sicknesses, but the aim is to get rid of the sicknesses. So same thing in the Pavattana Suttas. So don't misinterpret the Pavattana Sutta in such a way as to frighten away a lot of people. It's quite often that when we talk about happiness, especially material happiness, we are often told about this story about Ananda and Buddha. This is a story about one day the Buddha and his entourage were passing by a village. As they walked across a field, then the Buddha saw a snake. Some say it's a cobra in the bush. Then the Buddha turned his head and told the people behind him, "Be careful, there's a snake." Then the monks behind also, Ananda, also saw the snake and turned his head and told the people behind him, "Be careful, there's a snake." So everybody passed by and said, "Well, there's a snake, there's a snake." So they passed by. Then there was a father and son team who came from behind. And they saw it was a piece of gold. It's not a snake. So they happily carried the piece of gold home. Unfortunately for them, this piece of gold was actually a stolen goods that was accidentally dropped by the thieves in that place. So when the king came to know about this, the king had his father and son jailed. And this father and son, when they were in the jail, they said, "Really, gold is the poisonous snake." So this story is often narrated to us to tell us Buddhists, don't be too concerned about money. Money is very poisonous. Money is very bad. And this has been indoctrinated to us. In fact, over the centuries, many people, Buddhist monks included, often tell us to dissociate with money because money is evil. But is this really everything about what the Buddha taught? You must understand. Dhamma-inspired Sutta was taught by the Buddha to the 5 ascetics, the 5 monks who were together with the ascetic Uttama. When upon hearing the Dhamma-inspired Sutta, they gain enlightenment. That's why I say this is a like graduation exercise. It is a graduation thesis, highest level. After hearing, you gain enlightenment. So this sutta was not preached to the lay people. Something about Ananda and the Buddha. They were a group of monks, and for the monks, really, money is evil. Because once you are entangled with too much money, then it's very hard to practice as a monk. So these 2 suttas were meant for the monks, not for lay people. So please know how to differentiate. For lay people, for the Mahayanis, they like to go to Western Pure Land or Western Paradise, where it is described that in that particular place, even the road is paved with gold. So you can imagine these lay people, even going to Western Paradise, they expect the Western Paradise to be a material world to satisfy what they wanted now. And in the Theravada tradition, in the Dhammapada, it's mentioned that Santutti Paramandama, that contentment is the highest wealth. Okay, contentment is the highest wealth. Here again, we are told not to spend too much, or rather not to emphasize too much on materials or wealth. Okay, but I want to proceed to tell you that in Buddhism, material wealth is very important, especially for lay people like us. Okay? But before I proceed with that, I would like to share with you some modern discovery about happiness. In fact, happiness is a subject of study now in many universities, especially in the Western countries. So in the study of happiness, there are some interesting things that we can learn from the modern study. Number one, it is said that the happiness among men and women, there's a difference. Men tend to be happier than women. Well, this may be true because usually men is less concerned about others. The woman so concerned about others that they heap upon themselves quite a lot of problems. And that is apart from the fact that women also have more health problems than men. So this is one observation. Men are happier than women. Then there is another interesting discovery about age. In the past, it is thought that when we are young, we are usually not so happy. And then as we grow older, maybe in the middle age, that's when we have enough money, then we are happier. So it's an inverse U, a U upside down, an upside down U. So when you are young, very little happiness. You know, your parents control you, you are subjected to domestic violence. But as you grow, let's say to 20, 30 years old, then you become independent. As you gain your independence and you gain your own control over your own wealth, you feel happier. So middle age, you are happier. Then it goes down again. As you grow older, you may have more and more problems, especially in terms of health. And it goes, it's an inverse U. But in modern society, especially in the West, they found that the new trend is the proper U. U means when you are young, you are very happy, carefree. Parents to take care of you. This is especially true for people who were born between the First World War and the Second World War. So when they were young, they were very happy. But when they reached 20, 30 years old, they were constricted to fight the wars. And there were poverty, for example, 1930, poverty all around and economic recession. So many people were very unhappy when they were already 20, 30 years old, or let's say 20 to 60 years old. And then by the time of 1950, when the Second World War was over in 1945, then peace returned, then the children grown up, children are earning money, then the happiness go back again. So this is a U shape. Well, there is another finding is that, but don't live too long, because when you live too long, you suffer from health problems. So at the end of the U, there is still a drop as shown in the third figure there. Okay? So this is about age. But these two, we are not so concerned today. We are going to talk about wealth as found in a modern study. People have done study and they found that in North Europe, countries like Finland, Denmark, Sweden, the people there were the happiest, with the highest happiness index. And yet, they, I mean, at the same time, they are also among the highest income group in the world. So it tends to show that when your income is very good, very high, your happiness is also very high. But in UK, which is slightly lower than North Europe, well, the happiness index is high and the income is also high. Then we go down a little bit, Japan and France. Japan and France is slightly lower, and the happiness is average. You notice that Japan, despite the fact that it is one of the highest income countries in the world, its level of happiness is only on the average. And then if you look at Singapore and India, Singaporeans earn 10 times more than Indians, and yet their happiness index is the same. So from all these studies comes a conclusion that actually wealth and happiness are interrelated, but only to a certain extent. There's a correlation of about 20%. 20% correlation between money and happiness. Actually, money, the correlation is actually very important when you do not have enough. When you are in poverty, you will be unhappy, that's for sure. And if you are on the average income, then your happiness will be average. But when your income has exceeded what is required, for example, you have 10 billion now in your bank account, actually it does not add to your happiness anymore. Meaning to say, happiness and wealth is correlated at the lowest level right until the middle level to the high level. But after certain level, at the highest level, there's no more correlation. Meaning to say, let's say your income is say 1,000 a month, you will be very unhappy. Maybe your income now is 5,000 a month, your happiness is average. But let's say your income now exceeded 20,000 a month. Earning more will not add to your happiness anymore. That's why sometimes you must know how to spend your money. You earn more. Let's say you have 20,000 and then now you go for 40,000. It doesn't mean that your happiness will multiply another time. In fact, there's no more correlations. Okay, that's about money. In this study, it's so interesting to find that there is actually an important correlation between religion or religious belief, spiritual happiness. Okay, it is found that if you have a religion or you have a kind of religious belief, your happiness is higher than people without one. Okay? And the study also found another important thing. Apart from the material happiness and spiritual happiness that we often talk about, actually another very important contributory factor is relationship. How you relate to others. Introvert and extrovert. It is found that introverts usually are less happy. Extroverts tend to be happier. But the interesting thing is, these researchers couldn't find out whether it is because you are introvert, that's why you are unhappy, or because you are unhappy, that's why you become an introvert. And spouse. It is found that people with spouse tend to be happier than people without spouse. Again, the same problem arises here. Whether it's because you are unhappy, that's why you couldn't get a spouse, or because you have no spouse, that's why you become unhappy. So researchers are still trying to find the answer. But I think in Buddhism, we already had the answer. You know why? Because in Buddhism, cause becomes the effect, effect becomes the cause. So the answer is very simple. Because you are introvert, that's why you are not happy. And because you are not happy, that's why you are introvert. Okay? And because of that, actually we human beings need to have some kind of happiness by relating ourselves to others. That's why people keep cats and dogs as pets, especially old people. You know, when their children are not with them, they have nothing else to do. They would like to direct their love or their relationship to something else. So normally they take cats and dogs as their pets. Sometimes dogs and cats can be a nuisance. So we focus on flowers, plants. At least flowers and plants don't complain so much. But anyway, it shows that we human beings, we like to be associated. Okay, so having talked about the present study, now we go back to happiness from the perspective of Buddhism. Okay, from the perspective of Buddhism. In Buddhism, there is this sutta called Vagapaja Sutta or Dika Janu Sutta. Dika means long, Janu means knee. This man has got a long knee, so he has got a nickname Dika Janu. This Dika Janu one day came to the Buddha and asked the Buddha, Bante, you often preach about happiness, and you talk about the happiness for the lay people, for the monks. And then how about lay people like us who use the best sandalwood from Kasi? Kasi means Varanasi in India today. The best sandalwood from Kasi. And then we use the best perfume and we decorate ourselves with garlands, flowers. People like us who are enjoying worldly life like this, together with our families, members, what sort of happiness can we have? Then the Buddha says, Nikajanu, or Bhagavanya, there are 4 types of happiness you can have. Number 1 is Uttana Sampada. Uttana Sampada means if you make an effort to earn money, that is a kind of happiness, a kind of worldly blessings. By your sweat, by your effort to earn your money. And if you do it skillfully, means you have a skill, and you do it energetically, laboriously, and honestly, without cheating other people, properly. So that is a kind of Uttana Sampada. So mentioned in this sutta, the Buddha mentioned, whether it's by farming, by trading, by riding cattle, by archery, by service under the king, or by any other kind of craft. This sutta told us about the kind of occupation during the time of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago. But today, of course, we have different kinds of occupation. Some of you might be selling insurance, some of you might be teachers in the schools, some of you might be businessmen, trading, but trading was one of the oldest occupations. I think nobody rear cattle now, but you only rear cats and dogs. Okay, but as long as you earn by rightful means, that is a kind of happiness. Hardworking, wise, and honest and skilled. Then the second thing you can have is to watch over your wealth that you have earned. Araka Sampada. Watch over the wealth that you have earned. You know, in ancient times, there are 5 ways in which our wealth can dissipate. You have to make sure that kings would not seize it. Make sure the government don't come and confiscate it. You don't know when the government is going to take it, either legally or illegally. Legally means by tax. Not legally means by any other means. Okay? You have to make sure that thieves will not steal it. Nowadays, thieves don't break into your house. They break into your bank accounts. They break into your credit cards, things like that. So make sure you watch over it nicely so that it's not stolen. And then we talk about natural disasters, fire and water. Okay? Ancient times, these two were very common natural disasters, water and fire. Okay? Today, we still protect ourselves from fire and water. But because we protect so well that sometimes we forget about it. For example, practically every buildings you have now, you have fire protection system. Make sure you won't go away. Flood. We don't want flood to wash away your wealth. So now there are a lot of what called flood prevention schemes here and there. Okay? And the last one is, don't let ill disposed hands remove it. So a lot of people earn a lot of money, but soon the children spend them away, or the children or grandchildren wasted all the money. So we have to be very careful about it. Train them, bring them to the Dhamma. Then the Buddha says the next one, Kalyana Mittata, having good spiritual friends, to associate people full of faith, full of virtue, full of charity, and full of wisdom. Panya. Sada Sila Chaga Panya. Here when we talk about people full of charity, we use the word Chaga. Chaga refers to mental states. Dana is the actual physical act of giving. Chaga refers to the mental desire to give. So you need to be associating with the right people. In the Mangala Sutta, it's mentioned, Asevana cha balana, panditana cha sevana, puje cha puje niyantang, etang mangala utama. So in the Mangala Sutta, it's clearly mentioned not to associate with the fools, but to associate with the wise. Okay? And honor those who are honored. Honor those who are worthy of honor. So very important for us to associate with the wise. Then we talk about Samajivikatta, meaning to have a balanced income and expenses. In the Parabhava Sutta, it's mentioned that there are 4 ways in which our wealth can be dissipated. Debauchery means humanizing, in the present words. Drunkenness, drinking, gambling, friendship with evil companions. So these are the 4 main evils that can cause one's downfall, particularly material loss. So this is mentioned in the Parava Sutta. At the same time, in another sutta, the Sigalabhara Sutta, mentions 6. Alcohol is 1, already mentioned. And then sondering the streets at night, today we say lepak. Okay? If you spend your night here and there, it can cause yourself a lot of problems and a lot of loss of wealth. And then frequenting theatrical shows. Go for entertainment. Nowadays, we have so many types of entertainment in the town. So all these are ways we can waste our money. Then gambling, of course, bad companion. And one more, idlers. So take care of all these things, the Buddha says, so that we can take care of our material wealth, so that we do not overexpend and we do not lose money. Okay? So in the Sigalabhara Sutta, it's mentioned 1/4 you keep for daily expenses, 25%. So you earn $2,000, you spend $400 on your daily expenses. Another half for reinvestment. This is if you are a businessman. And then another quarter, 25%, go for saving. The government already forced you to save about 10% through your EPF. Okay. So and if your employer add another 10%, you are actually saving 20%. Not too bad, compared with the 25% recommended by the Buddha. And you keep some more saving in your own bank account, then I think you can manage to save around 25%. You need these savings for the rainy days. Okay. Well, of course, in Samajivikatta, when we talk about balanced livelihood, we have to know how to be contented. Santutting paramangtut Dhamma. And it's mentioned in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, Santut Sakkucha Subarucha. You must be contented and easily supported. Then you will find that you will be able to balance your income and expenditures. Sometimes, because we are not contented, our income does not warrant us, does not permit us to have a big house, but we want to have a big house. Or our income does not permit us to have a car, we want to have a car. So we are not contented. And we are not easily supported. We want this, we want that, we demand so many things. So, not balanced. So we get into trouble. We have another sutta also mentioned, Patakama Sutta. Patakama Sutta mentioned how our money should be spent. I'm still on Samajivikata. Patakama Sutta talk about how our money should be spent. Number one is to make our parents, wife and children, our workers, our friends happy. This is also mentioned in the Mangala Sutta. Matta pitu upatanam putta darasa sanghaho anakulacha kamanta etang mangalam uttamam. To make our parents, wife and children, support them. Okay? So you earn so much money, you have to, under Samajivikata or balanced livelihood, you have to know how to spend your money. One part is to support our family members and also allocate some money to entertain our friends. And to make ourselves secure against all misfortunes whatsoever, the 5 losses that we discussed just now, also mentioned in Patakama Sutta. We have to take some, we have to take care so that we don't lose through these 5 channels. And here, another one. Offering to relatives. Offering, I mean, to spend on relatives, to spend on guests. When guests come to your house, you have to entertain them, or when you go out with friends, you have to buy them lunch or buy them dinner. Don't forget also offering to the departed. So, ancestral worship actually is not denied in Buddhism. Ancestral worship was practiced in ancient India, also practiced in ancient China. So today we still make some offerings to the departed. Okay? It's not mentioned here that you make offering to the Sangha members and transfer the marriage to the departed. It's mentioned here offering to the departed. That shows that in the ancient time, offering to the departed was also part of the practice in India. Then, offering to the king means pay taxes lah. So sometimes we didn't budget to pay income tax. That's a problem. So when income tax comes, then we don't know what to do. So the government help us by asking us to pay in advance, okay, or pay as you earn. Okay. And the next one is offering to the devas. So when we have Buddha Puja, we also put there Buddha Puja and offering to the devas. So we must have some budgets for all these things. So ask yourself whether you have all these kind of budgets or not. Or your budget is only for number 1, take care of your family members. Or maybe your budget is only number 1 and number 2. But you don't have budget for number 3, especially for other people. Okay. And now only the Buddha mentioned under Patakama Sutta, the next one, to make offering to all those recluses and Brahmins, to make offerings for dana to Samanas and Brahmanas, to monks and Brahmins, to religious people. Okay. I think this piece of advice on the 4 types of expenses is very useful for us as a reference. Just to relate one more story on Samajivikata, on the balanced livelihood, we must know how to conserve the resources. There is this story about Ananda. He was inquired by the king. As the king offered a lot of ropes to the Sangha members, then the king asked Ananda, now that you have the Sangha members have old rope, a new rope, what happened to the old ropes? Then Ananda said, the old ropes, we would use it as a bed sheets, bed cover. Then the king said, what happened to the old bed sheet covers? Then the Ananda said, the old bed sheet covers would be used as, would be put together, rolled together and used as pillows. And what happened to the old pillows? Then the old pillows would be used for as a foot wipe, put on the floor to wipe your foot, your feet. Then what happened to that old ropes, old racks on the floor? Then Ananda said, we would tear them into pieces, mix them with mud, and then use it to seal the wall. So everything is used up, conservation. In fact, I think in all ancient civilizations, people conserve almost everything. Only people of our present generation now, because we are so well-to-do that we tend to forget about the need to conserve the resources, since we think we can afford it. Okay? Now that was on Vagabhadhyaya. The Buddha advised Vagabhadhyaya, but the Buddha also talked to Anantapindika. All of you know about Anantapindika, right? The wealthiest man in India at that time. It's historically recorded, that he was the wealthiest man in India at that time. And why he was so wealthy? Because he was engaged in a kind of occupation whereby if you don't have money, you can borrow money from him. And if you have too much money, you can deposit your money with him. Today we call that the banker. If you don't like, you call it alok, okay? Or chetia. In fact, I think it's written somewhere in the sutra. He's written as a chetia. Chetia. So Anantapindika was a very wealthy businessman who built the Jetavana monastery. And then when he was old, actually he became poor. And he became poor, then he became rich again. Then he became poor, then he became rich again. And then at the old age, one day he came to the Buddha. And then the Buddha told him, there are 4 kinds of happiness the old lay person can enjoy. Number 1 is artisukha, the happiness of possession. This one can easily be verified. You know, some people possess 1,000 handbags. By having 1,000 handbags, they just feel so happy about it, right? Do they use 1,000 handbags? I don't think so. Iveda Kos also had more than 1,000 pairs of shoes in her wardrobes. Does she use all the 1,000 shoes? No, but she possesses it. Too happy. A lot of women also got a lot of jewelry here and there. They hardly wear. But thinking that they had all those things, they got very happy, right? So, artisukha. The next one is bhoga sukha. Bhoga means enjoyment. So, the bhoga sukha. Bhoga sukha means the happiness arising from enjoyment of the wealth that you have. So you can spend, like just now I mentioned just now, on your family members, on your friends, to perform dana, to make offerings to departed ones. So when you have the wealth to spend, it's a kind of enjoyment. Okay. Then knowing about Anathapindika being a rich man, the Buddha purposely mentioned about Ananasukha, meaning to say you are free from debts. And I can tell you, free from debt actually is a kind of happiness. If you get yourself into debt, then you will understand how much suffering it is to have debts. For those who are not in debt, maybe you don't appreciate it. But for those who have been in debt, having to borrow every now and then, and having to run away from alone, having to live in fear, anxiety, worry, is real suffering. But free from debt, free from material debt, it's a form of happiness. And then the Buddhas mentioned Aravajya Sukha, being able to live a blameless life. When you think that before you die, when you think that all this while in this life, I have not done anything harmful to anybody, I have led a very pure life, observing the precepts, did not harm anybody, then you can be very happy. So that was the advice given by the Buddha on the 4 types of happiness a lay person could enjoy. But what is important here is mentioned also. The first 3 are material happiness. And material happiness, Anantapindika, is not worth 1/16 of Anavajja Sukha. Meaning to say, 1/16 meaning to say negligible. Okay, negligible. So material happiness is negligible when compared with the life of a blameless life. So you notice in Anathapindika, in the Ananasukha Sutta, and also in the Vakapacha Sutta we mentioned earlier, in these 2 suttas, there are 4 types of happiness associated with a lay person, and of the 4 types, 3 are associated with materials, but there is 1 that is actually embedded inside our lay life, and that is Anavajja Sukha, or a blameless life, or Samajivikata, or having good spiritual friends. This is where the Buddha very cleverly observed that lay person like us, 3/4 of our life is associated with materials. But we need to have another 1/4 associated with our spiritual happiness. Okay? Now this is talking about material happiness in the present life. In the Vakapacha Sutta, the Buddha actually continued to talk about spiritual happiness now. Lay person's spiritual happiness. The Buddha says, if we have these 4 qualities, Saddha, Sila, Chaga, and Panya, then we would be assured of a good next life. So here the Buddha prepared Vakapacha for spiritual happiness. So jump across some of them. So when we talk about Saddha, theoretically, it's very simple. Saddha means the Saddha in the triple gem. Saddha means the triple gem, or the faith in the triple gem. And how to do that? I think we should not ignore the importance of ceremony. For example, to listen to the Dhamma, to chant the suttas. These are all aspects that can help us to build up our Saddha, or our faith. Okay? And importance of values. Here, when I talk about importance of value, I'm referring to Sila and Chaga. Sila, if you value Sila, you value precepts, and if you value Chaga, then these are the qualities that you practice. So, Sila and Chagas are not words that we put on our lips. These are actions that we need to translate into actions. These are values that we need to translate into actions. And of course, there are certain other values that we learn in Buddhism, such as anicca or inconstance or impermanence. Knowing all these things will help us to view our wealth in a more proper manner. And it's also important about panya, discernment. Importance of discernment means importance of knowing what is right and what is wrong. Okay, that's panya. In another sutta, it's mentioned that to gain spiritual wealth, this is called the 7 spiritual wealth in Buddhism. Sada, Sila, which we already discussed. And then we have the Hiri and Uttama. Hiri refers to moral shame. You feel shame of not doing it. Not that you're scared of other people condemning you, but because you feel shame of doing it. And Uttama is moral fear. This one, you fear that other people may condemn you for doing this. So these are 2 different things. I mean, split into 2 different things: moral shame and moral fear. If you develop these 2, then this will become your spiritual wealth. And the next one is sutta, or hearing of the Dhamma. So to increase your spiritual wealth, make sure every Sunday morning you come and listen to Dhamma talks. Okay. Then the next one, chaga and panya, which we already discussed. Now, in Buddhism, we also stress about happiness from the perspective of relationship, which is also an important aspect now being studied in modern research. So, relationship begins because a happy relationship brings about great happiness. So, relationship with parents, children, spouses, friends is very important aspect. And in this particular aspect, the Buddha mentioned, the Buddha's advice, some of the Buddha's advices which are very useful and relevant to us is the quality of metta that we often talk about. Because happiness is metta is happiness. And a sense of gratitude. If you have gratitude, then you tend to treat people with the sense of gratitude. You tend to treat people kindly. You tend to think of what I can do to pay my gratitude to them. So that makes your human relationship much better. But today, because we are talking about wealth, so this particular aspect I'm just going through very quickly.
Okay.
Then, service. Okay. You cannot just come to pubs or what and just say, I want to build good human relationship, but you don't want to do anything. Okay.
Okay.
So if you know how to do some service, take care of the bookshops, or sweep the floor, or do some useful things, service, it will help build human relationship. And the same thing can be done in the office, okay, in your workplace. Okay? And of course, one important part is kind speech. A lot of times, human relationship is spoiled because of our mouth. If we know how to talk properly, we can build good human relationship. Okay, having said all those things about what the Buddha taught in ancient times, 2,500 years ago, now we would like to take a look at the modern Buddhist financial management. Before we talk about modern Buddhist financial management, we need to look at how do we apply the Buddhist philosophy to modern life. Normally, when we want to apply Buddhist philosophy to our modern life, we look at the general principles, not mechanically apply what is mentioned. It would be disastrous if you do that, because 2,500 years ago, the society is completely different from the society we are living in today. The Buddha's time was an agricultural society. Politically, it was a monarchy. The people were generally less educated. Most people could not read. And it was a very slow-paced society at that time. Whereas in our modern time, our society today, actually worldwide, less than 10% of the people are engaged in agriculture. 90% of the people are engaged in businesses other than agriculture. And we are living in a politically a democratic countries. Then today, practically everybody is educated. And the most important one, we are living in a very fast-paced society. Okay? So, modern financial management have to operate in a scenario of a fast-paced society with a lot of uncertainty and with one main objective, to maximize wealth. Okay? And because of that, we have a lot of cases like 1MDB, Bandar, and so on and so forth. And then you have Deloitte being fined for unethical business practices. Then you have conflict of interest of different stakeholders. And then you have the rare earth, environmental pollutions, and social unrest, and so on. All these are associated with the modern financial management of trying to maximize wealth. And of course, we are not leaving those things alone. We also try to counter all those situations with the so-called best practices on corporate governance. Then we introduce ISO, we introduce all sorts of ethical practices and so on and so forth, and then we bring in more people to share the cake, because you need these people to run the countermeasures and so on and so forth. Then you enforce regulatory supervision and so on and so forth. So this is the characteristics of present day financial management. And how about Buddhist financial management? Buddhist financial management cannot escape from the fact that we are also operating in a fast-paced and uncertain society. Okay, and we are also talking about generation of wealth. But remember, our objective is to go for happiness. I don't say to maximize happiness, but to happiness. So, in a Buddhist financial management, wealth is a means and not an end. Okay. We should be santut sakocha shubarucha, contented and easily supported. Okay. We must earn our wealth righteously in the Buddhist financial management. Okay. Not to harm the environment. We must know how to watch over our wealth and plug all the means of draining the wealth. And I would advise, if possible, you should learn about present day financial management. Because there are many things today that we can't find in the suttas. For example, you don't buy shares. Okay? Today, you buy shares, you've got to learn something about how to buy shares. Okay? You want to buy bonds, you have to learn so that you can watch over your wealth. And of course, you must know how to spend wisely on convert your wealth into happiness by utilizing and spending, consuming the wealth to fulfill our needs and wants. So the money is not yours until it is spent. If you hoard your money in your bank account, or you hoard your money under your bed or under your pillow, it is as good as useless. Let's say you keep a piece of gold in your safe deposit box, and you never use it, you never touch it until you die. Also, you never use it.
Then why you keep it?
Then it is as good as you. Then it is as good as you keep a brick in the safe deposit box, right? Because it's useless. So unless you convert the money to use, the money actually is useless. But mentioned here in Buddhist financial management, under the principle of Buddhist philosophy, to benefit others. Consuming wealth alone leads to spiritual downfall. That is mentioned in Paramava Sutta. But if you consume wealth to help others, that leads to happiness. And always remember, to give is better than to take. I have a friend, he told me, I train my children not how to do business. I train my children how to give. When they learn how to give, then they have to learn how to take. When they need to learn how to take, then they will learn how to do business. So you see, some people know how to begin with an end in mind. And when we talk about Buddhist financial management, we talk about sustainable development. Okay? Sustainable. This is mentioned in Karaniya Metta Sutta. In the Karaniya Metta Sutta, it is mentioned, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting one, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, seen or unseen, near and far away, and born and unborn, may they all be at ease. Here, we talk about beings in the forest, in the lakes, or in the river, in the ocean, in the atmospheres, even the unborn. These are unborn future stakeholders. We have to take care of all these people. Sorry, all these beings. So when we talk about Buddhist financial management, we also bear in mind sustainable development. And we would like to use our resources effectively. Okay? There is a debate here whether we Buddhists should go for debt financing, like hire purchase. If we have time, we discuss about it. Because I think my time is running out.
Yeah, Zoom got time, but me don't have time.
Modern Buddhist financial management. You know, Milton Friedman. You know who is this guy? He's a Nobel Prize winner in 1976. Milton Friedman in 1970 mentioned that the objective of an enterprise is to maximize profit for the shareholder. And because of these capitalist views, everybody rush in that direction, maximize profit for the shareholder. Not everybody, you know, only for the shareholder, not the stakeholder. Management expert Peter Drucker in 1973 said otherwise. The objective is to create customers. For an enterprise is to create a customer. But I say, from our Buddhist perspective, today's Buddhist perspective, our objective of our financial management, of our enterprise, is to create happiness. To create Attaya, Hitaya, Sukhaya, as mentioned by the Buddha when he first dispatched the 60 Arahants in 60 directions. To take care of the Attaya, Hitaya, Sukhaya. Meaning to say our material life is also to create happiness for everybody. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that happiness is derived from wealth. Happiness that is derived from wealth is not the ultimate happiness, but it is an essential part of lay life. And layman happiness, happiness from wealth, happiness from spiritual practices, and happiness from good relationships. These three kinds of happiness would contribute to a layman's happiness. And the ultimate objective of Buddhist financial management is happiness. So I have to end my talk here now. Thank you very much. Not yet.
Thank you very much, Brother Dr. Ang, for the very informative and insightful Dhamma sharing. And now for some question and answers. Would it be okay, Dato?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. I see there's one, this is, let me just go. There are just three here, so let's start with the first one. Question from Yu Hai Ing from Bub's Facebook. How do we balance our spiritual development with our worldly family life so as to live life to the fullest and without regrets?
Actually, living a day life doesn't mean that we cannot live a spiritual life. You must understand that during the time of the Buddha, many lay people actually attained Anagami and even Sagaragami, and some even attained Arahanthood. People like Chitta of Machin Kanda and even the King Sudodana, even Ananta Pindika, they will all attain a certain degree of sainthood. That shows that lay people can live a spiritual life. We tend to differentiate or demarcate between spiritual life and material life
Is that the meat?
for easy comprehension and understanding. But in reality, when you practice, when you carry on with your material life, for example, when you are making money or you are running a business, that running a business can be a spiritual practice. I hope you understand that. That running a business is the ground for spiritual practice. Okay? Spiritual practice doesn't mean sitting down quietly in one corner or in a forest or in a temple. That's called spiritual practice. That is actually quite easy because you have no disturbances around. But real spiritual practice is when you have issues to address, when you have challenges to overcome.
Yeah.
So, for example, you have to conclude a sale with somebody. Are you going to maximize your profit, or are you going to think in terms of what my actions would help the other person and would help me? That is spiritual practice.
Sure.
Well, I hope I understand. I answer your question.
Thank you. Yeah. Another question from Bub's Facebook. Helping others who take advantage of our compassion is suffering. How do we have more self-compassion for ourselves so as to avoid people who do not appreciate our kindness? A bit lengthy though, this question.
Oh, that's about exploitation of our kindness, is it?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, if you want to be kind, you want to help people, you are actually looking for trouble. You're actually looking for troubles. So we have to expect some kind of troubles. You can't be free from those troubles. So
Sure.
you have to accept the fact that there will be some people who are out to exploit or out to take advantage. For example, PMSM started the meta pantries. Then of course everybody would say, well, this would be easily abused because you put 10 breads there, one fellow come and take all the 5 breads away, or one fellow come and sapu all the 10 breads home, then nobody will help.
Yeah.
That fellow would benefit from the 10 breads. So we can't help. With this kind of situations. We have to accept the fact that there will be some troubles. But having said that, it does not mean that we encourage to be exploited. Okay? So we have to think of ways and means to reduce this kind of being exploited or being made use of. So, for example, meta pantry. So instead of putting 10 breads at one time, no, I put 3 I put 3. So you want to take, you take 3 Okay. So these are ways we have to handle the situation. Those of us who have been in Buddhist movement for a long time, we notice that these kind of things often happen.
Yeah.
Even if you offer scholarship, help and everything, there will be some people who are so well off and yet they come forward to apply for it, And they cheated with all the wrong information.
True.
The income may be 10,000, but they told you the income is only 1,000. so that he or she could get a scholarship or things like that.
Yeah.
You
True,
can't run away from the fact that there are some people who are just being foolish, but
Yeah.
we cannot let this kind of foolishness deter what we want to do. Okay.
Yep. I guess they will have to rip their own karma vipaka then. Yeah. Just a comment, if you don't mind. I think there's a listener who just said that, my apologies, but there's some background voices and noises, which is quite noticeable. Just a comment only. I've already.
Okay.
Yeah. Then there is one question from Raymond Swa. In Malaysia, while working hard, accumulating wealth, we are always being discriminated by government policy. How does Buddhism view this? A little bit into politics now. Yeah.
You know, Ajahn Brahm says,
Ah.
things that you can change,
Yeah.
you go in and change. Things that you cannot change,
Yeah.
you don't grumble. Because you keep on grumbling, won't help you anything at all.
Yeah.
You can just keep on grumbling. So if you can change, you change it. You cannot change it, you have to bear it. Okay.
Yeah.